It's been more than half a year since the first cases of the novel coronavirus were identified, and 12 weeks since the WHO declared a global pandemic. Scientists and health professionals have yet to discover a vaccine. It's not for lack of trying. Dozens of new vaccine candidates are in testing. But some researchers are pinning their hopes on vaccines that already exist. To what extent could tuberculosis vaccines be used against the new coronavirus? As scientists race to find a coronavirus vaccine, it could be that there's one right under our noses. The BCG vaccine, traditionally used against tuberculosis, has been shown to also protect against a range of other diseases. Researchers are now hoping that COVID-19 could be one of them.
It may be only a little prick, but it rarely goes down well with those on the receiving end. In Bulgaria, every newborn gets a shot of the vaccine BCG. Its primary purpose is to protect them from the lung disease tuberculosis. Bulgarian health workers swear by it.
The BCG vaccine has been used in Bulgaria since 1951. That's more than half a century. So during my professional experience of 30 years or more, we've vaccinated newborn babies with BCG the whole time.
Bulgaria is also a major producer of BCG, which is known to strengthen the immune system. And now it's preparing to increase output because of a potential new use. Almost exactly 100 years since it was first developed in the laboratories of France's Pasteur Institute, some modern scientists believe BCG could be used to fight coronavirus. That possibility is being tested out in medical trials in the Netherlands.
It could be a very important tool to bridge this dangerous period until we have on the market a proper specific vaccine against coronavirus.
Being able to use a cheap and readily available existing vaccine would have its advantages, particularly for less well-off economies. That's why this South African lab is also testing BCG's effectiveness against COVID-19.
We are very proud to do this study in South Africa because we believe that especially countries that have restricted health care resources might benefit from a simple intervention like this first, because we just can't ramp up our hospital infrastructure and especially the lack of personnel as quickly as other countries probably can. It might not work, you know, it's a reasonable assumption that we are just going after a hunch and it might not eventually materialize, but still, one has to start doing something.
Meanwhile, other researchers are looking at the babies of Bulgaria and wondering if the country's comparatively low number of coronavirus cases could be down to its newborns all getting that uncomfortable little prick.
And there are also tests with tuberculosis vaccines underway here in Germany. Professor Christoph Schindler is head of the Hanover Medical School CRC core facility and also chair of early clinical studies and drug research. It's very good to have you with us on the program, Professor Schindler. Now, our focus in this report earlier was on the BCG vaccine as used in Bulgaria, for example. You are working with the new VPM 1002 vaccine. What's the difference?
Well, it's important to know that there is a significant difference. And compared to the old BCG vaccine, which has been used since decades, especially in third world countries, VPM is a genetically optimized BCG vaccine in which one gene, the urease Z gene, was inactivated and another gene, the listeriolysin gene, was inserted. And this genetic modification basically results in enhanced immune activation compared to BCG and in an improved safety profile. And this new mode of action is expected to result in an efficacious and well-tolerated vaccine, which should be at least as potent as, but safer than the currently used bacillus vaccine.
Right, and why do we believe that BCG, or in this case the VPM 1002 genetically modified vaccine, would be helpful against COVID-19?
Well, yes, the concept that BCG and VPM might help to protect against the coronavirus is based on scientific evidence that the BCG vaccine exerts also non-specific effects on viral infections. And the idea to use BCG against corona is mainly based on three scientific observations. First, reduction of the incidence and severity of respiratory infections. Second, exertion of antiviral effects, as seen in experimental models already. And third, reduction of viremia, as seen in an experimental human model of viral infection. And therefore, we hypothesize that BCG vaccination may induce partial protection against the susceptibility and/or severity of SARS-CoV-2 infection.
Okay, so to put it in layman's terms, VPM 1002 vaccine can stimulate and strengthen the immune system, which obviously is very helpful in the fight against COVID-19. And you actually run clinical trials already using VPM against COVID-19. What is the result so far?
We have just clinically initiated the first of two placebo-controlled phase 3 trials in which we investigate 1,000 healthcare workers if vaccinated study participants have a reduced number of days absent from work due to respiratory disease. And we also assess the incidence of SARS-CoV-2 symptoms of infection, reduction of hospital admission, intensive care unit admission, or death in healthcare professionals with direct patient contacts during the pandemic phase of COVID-19. Well, and this will be followed by a second trial. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just, because this already sounds very promising, and you just were about to say that there'll be a second trial phase. Can you already foresee when this vaccine could be used until we find a real COVID-19 vaccine?
Yeah, well, we regard this solution as a bridging solution, actually, and therefore it is very important that we progress with the clinical trials now as fast as possible. And we are currently concentrating on recruitment of these trials. The question when we will be ready is always a very difficult one. Hopefully, the trials will be recruited by the end of this year.
All right. Professor Christoph Schindler from the Hanover Medical School there. Thank you so much for your time and explaining VPM 1002 to us. So VPM 1002 could bridge the gap until there is a dedicated, specific COVID-19 vaccine. But what happens if the virus mutates? Now, that's one of the questions you posted to our science correspondent on YouTube. Here's Derek Williams.
Is there any evidence SARS-CoV-2 can turn chronic?
If you mean chronic in the sense that it can remain in the body after convalescence and then cause regular relapses, then I'd say we don't have the data yet. It's still too soon to know, though a small percentage of people who catch the pathogen do experience symptoms on and off for weeks. But what's certain is that at least some of the people who catch the disease will end up with more or less permanent physical ailments, especially those who had severe cases. One of the doctors who treated British Prime Minister Boris Johnson even believes COVID-19 is going to be this generation's polio, with the kind of long-term consequences that implies. Studies have only tracked survivors for a few months so far, but if research into people who recovered from SARS is any indicator, for many, having COVID-19 could certainly cause chronic complaints down the road in a range of different areas.
Can we be sure the virus won't mutate once there is a new vaccine?
All viruses mutate. That's evolution. The question is not whether it will mutate, but how it mutates. Could SARS-CoV-2 change so fundamentally that a theoretical immunity provided by a still theoretical vaccine would no longer provide protection? Yes, certainly. And in fact, as the pandemic progresses and populations make strides towards herd immunity, the virus will adapt because it'll come under evolutionary pressure from what's known as selection. The fittest viruses will be the ones able to infect the most people, the ones that are best able to slip unrecognized past an immune system that's been armed to stop SARS-CoV-2. But so far, the indications are that the virus doesn't mutate very fast.
How is the rise of social media and the internet changing the speed of scientific research?
The internet has changed science in fundamental ways. Modern research is all about collaboration, and the internet has enabled that like no other tool in human history. You see its effects, for example, in how many peer-reviewed COVID-19 studies have been spawned by the pandemic so far. The exact number is hard to pin down because it rises by the day, but there are currently nearly 5,000 in the WHO database and thousands more that haven't been added yet. Many of those studies are written by teams of collaborating scientists that are spread across the globe. Social media platforms also play a big role in speeding up research because they offer a much less formal stage for the instant exchange of ideas than classic platforms like conferences or journals do. So the internet has accelerated scientific discovery to speeds that would have been unimaginable even just a few decades ago.
Derek Williams there, and I'm sure there are many more questions out there, so do keep them coming and post them to Derek on our YouTube channel. And to keep up with the latest developments on the coronavirus, subscribe to our newsletter. Go to dw.com/corona-newsletter. We started the show with babies, and we'd like to end on them too. Newborns in Colombia's capital, Bogota, are getting to know their families via hundreds of video calls. Visits to the neonatal unit are forbidden to protect vulnerable babies from possible coronavirus infection. Social workers coordinate the calls and hold tablets up to the incubators, connecting families and enabling them joy at a time where bringing life into the world has been complicated, to say the least.
Te quiero mucho, hija.